Hello, today I was looking through our tests. Okay, I actually have to confess, I looked through it the other day and I've already done this, but I thought I would share it with everybody. So if we look at the tests on the left and the right here, we have a buzzer test from Grove Pi and an ultrasonic test. These are both components that you can plug into the Grove Pi, but their setup is very similar. Actually, if we look at this outside of this on and off here, and this line 10 on the left and line 8 on the right, we have the exact same code all the way down through the end of the setup down here. Everything looks the same. So I thought, well, what can we do to fix this issue and eliminate this duplication? And some different things popped to mind. I could just create a module with some functions that I pass things into, or I even toyed with the idea of doing some macros, which actually seemed a little crazy and silly, but I just wanted to play with some macros, really. And so what I ended up deciding on is a template for a test case. So what I would like to do is come in here. Let's make sure everything runs first. So mix tests, 10 tests, 0 failures. Let's start with the one on the right here. Since it's smaller, we will focus just on it. And what I would like to do is change this to something like component test case, and then eliminate all of this. I would like the setup to become setup, where all it really is going to do is what's on line 8 up there. So let's go ahead and look at the test case and how we would make this happen. So I have pulled up the ExUnit case template here in Dash, and you'll notice that it's pretty simple. It has a using macro, and then it receives setup and the assertions and things like that from the callback. So it doesn't, there's not a lot to it, which makes it nice and simple to work with. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and create this component test case, because right now if we run these tests, we get a failure. We don't have a component test case. So let's set one up. I'm going to make a directory here. Inside of test, I'm going to create a directory called support, because I think it's a good name, and have it left over. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we're going to create a new file in that new directory, test support. Oh, maybe I did not. Oh yeah, there it is. Component test case.exs. All right, so def module component test case. Let's just go there and see where we are in our tests. So we actually end up with the same thing. It doesn't know where component test case is, which is weird if you're dealing with your project and your EX and it compiles and everything works. Well, when you're down here in the test cases, it doesn't quite work that way, because you actually need to require the file. Let's go ahead and open up our test helper file. This is where ExUnit starts, and you can actually go through and require some files from here. There is a code.require file, and this file is actually going to be required from the very top level of your project tree. So it is going to need to have test passed into it as part of the path, support, and component test case. Now, one thing I thought is that it would just load it, but you actually do need to have the extension on it. So with that, let's see how our tests are doing. All right, could not load file, test support component test case. So let's see what I did here. Test support. Oh, I spelled it wrong when I made the directory. So let's go ahead and move that directory. Test. That's probably why I had an issue earlier. And we are just going to take that O completely out. Now it says this is no longer available. Let's component reload that bottom one and run our tests again. All right, undefined function setup. So because we're now using this module that does nothing really, we lose all of our ExUnit stuff. So use ExUnit. So we need to load all that in case template. So this should put us in a spot where we are exactly like the left-hand side over there. Everything as it was before, because we are just an ExUnit test case now. All right, so now we can start pulling in those common components. So up here at the top, let's open up that buzzer test again. And we'll see first off that pin and module tag are exactly the same. So we are going to use that using callback and add in at pin. We could probably actually make that random to make sure that all of our pins work, but right now let's just keep it exactly the same. Tag. Here, let's just steal this from over here. So let's first get rid of just that little bit of setup there and run our tests, see what we've got. Hey, everything's still good. Now we've only done this in one file. Let's go ahead and try to do it in two at the same time. Component test case, and that means that we don't need those two. Run our tests. Everything is still looking good. That's really nice. So we've eliminated that little bit of duplication, but really the setup and the starting is what we need to eliminate the most. So we actually have the availability to run some setup information in this component test case. So we'll do a setup, and let's just steal actually this setup here. But the start ultrasonic is what we are not going to be using. But we do still, on both sides, we are doing that start link with the prefix. Our setup here is going to start taking in that returned context. I like to call it tags because it includes anything, like if we said at tag blue foo here. It will include all of those. So I call it tags because we are actually going to pass this prefix back to these guys. So in our setup, what we want our setup to change to here on the left, I'm getting way ahead of myself here, is to start the sensor and return the prefix and the board so that the context is still available below. And we're going to move everything else over there to the right. So our tags, I could repeat tags.prefix, tags.board all over the place, but instead let's go ahead and break those out so that we have prefix is found in our tags. Prefix. And we actually pass board on, so even though we don't do anything with it, we can work with it that way. And let's see how our test goes there. We should end up with a failure. Undefined function start ultrasonic. Oh, over here on the left. What we want to do is replace that with the first part of our starting here. And we're changing these to an equals because we're no longer within that width. We're doing a pattern match there just to make sure that we start it up okay. And start ultrasonic should no longer be used. Let's see how our tests go now. Oh no, broke something. Invalid or incomplete test case, line 17. Oh, this was in a with statement before, so it has a comma at the very end of it. Run into that problem a few times when I've tried to break a with statement apart. And now we have the same issue on line 7 over here in the ultrasonic test. All right, perfect. So now we have it over there on the left. Let's try to make the right look the same way. So we are going to eliminate much of this, change this to setup. Well, actually, again, we're doing a little repeat here, but let's go ahead and steal that setup, just so we don't have to deal with the writing the little bit of boilerplate that's left. I mean, there is some that is still similar, but we've eliminated a lot of the issues here. And let's see how that's working out. Unexpectedly reached end of line. We forgot a comma again, didn't we? Yep. So there we go. We have now eliminated that boilerplate in the test case. So we have a more complicated example on this button test case. So the issue with button is that setup already takes in a set of tags because down here at the very bottom we have a tag called poll interval that changes what the polling is of the button, because the button is based on a polling. So we need to make our setup on the right take in those tags and append to them so that we can then utilize all that functionality inside of our setup here. So let's see how we could do that. We want to make sure that our tags come in over on the right hand side, and we still are going to do this prefix, but then we are going to make sure we don't want to change that tags. We want to add to the tags. We're not actually using any of them, we're just adding to them. So map.put. So we're going to put our prefix into the tags, and then we're going to do the same thing for the board. So we're going to replace prefix with board on that line. Perfect. And then this part here just becomes returning the tags. All right, let's see if our test passed now. Oh no, no function clause matching. What do we do? So it's saying prefix and board are not within the new tags. That, you know what? Let's use the ability in Elixir to reassign that within this scope. Because the problem actually at that point was that this should have been new tags because we were only adding prefix or board, not both. There we go. now everything's good. So let's go back to our button test. And so our button test needs to pass along this functionality here, so to get the poll interval out. So let's go ahead and we're going to replace our setup again, right? We're going to change that to be tags, and all of this is our plan is to go away, correct? Module tag, which we can leave in because it actually adds in the poll interval to the reporting so that we can see that better. So we'll just use that to override on any failures. So we need to get poll interval out of the tags, and so let's see what that looks like. We also need prefix out of the tags, so let's do what we did on that other and pull prefix out. Prefix with some pattern matching and set that to tags. And then before we were defaulting the poll interval to 1 if it didn't exist within the tag. So let's do that. Poll interval, and we're going to set that to get something out of the map, which is our tags, only if it exists, and if it doesn't exist we're going to set it to 1. Alright, let's see if our tests are still passing. Oh no, what did we do? Unbound variable, button test, line 9. Oh, we need to change our arrow here to an equals. All right, now we have another problem. Why do we always have these issues? So let's look at button test EXS line 7. There's some other warnings up at the top. Maybe they'll let us know. Undefined module attribute pin on button test 27. Oh, we forgot to change the test case to be the component test case. Now let's try it out. Hey, we've got to get all the moving parts in there. So that's about it. We'll step through and change them on the rest of the system. But the big thing is that with the component test case that we now have, we can eliminate much of the boilerplate code and shared code that we have throughout our tests by making specialized test cases. For us, this one was for different components that all required the same things to be started up, and also required some of the same contexts. Thanks for joining in today, and don't forget your tests.